two-part question here. Where is this all leading? And the second part of the question is, if not in rental housing, where, in real estate, where should we put our money? Where should we invest that?
Well, the thing is, you have to have your money in real things. So real estate is real property, and it's going to have value, right? I mean, now obviously, that can change, because circumstances can change. So neighborhoods can go out of favor, and so now they're not as desirable. But all of a sudden, a neighborhood could become more desirable. Like, I think now, with a lot of people working from home, and how this is changing, it's not as desirable to be in the city. It's now more desirable to be an hour outside, which might have been undesirable from a commuting point of view. But now that you don't have to commute anymore, some of these locations are now a lot more desirable than the other ones. And now people might have a premium on a larger home because they need a home office, or they need a bigger yard for their kids to play when they're homeschooled, or whatever's going on. So you're going to see, like, these things will affect real estate. But I think owning real property that you can live in, that you can rent out, at least to people who will pay you, there's value there. There's value in land that you can farm, or that you can use to extract other resources, timber or mining. So that type of property is going to be valuable. I think some of the commercial property, if it's shopping centers, strip malls, that stuff's going to be in trouble. Office buildings going to be in trouble. But industrial buildings, that could end up having more value in the way I see the economy evolving eventually. But you got to get out of paper. I own a lot of stocks, which to me represents ownership in companies and businesses. I mean, you can own your own business, and that's another hedge. Own your own business, but you can also own small pieces of other businesses, which is what you own when you're a stockholder. But I'm not just buying stocks because they're popular on Reddit or something, and there's like some meme and the stock is going up. I mean, I want to buy a business where I want to own that business, because I think that we're going to have this massive inflation, and paper is going to get wiped out. I mean, maybe it won't lose all of its purchasing power. It's going to lose most of its purchasing power. I mean, you think about how much purchasing power the dollar has lost over the last 50 or 100 years, right? Well, it can lose as much, if not more, over the next 5 to 10 years. We're going to just compress the time period with which the dollar is losing purchasing power. And so we're going to see much more pronounced increases in consumer prices. What we're seeing right now, what the Fed is dismissing as being transitory, is actually the tip of this huge iceberg. We're just getting a small taste of what's going to happen when it comes to consumer prices. So I want to hedge my purchasing power, and so I don't want to be in paper. So you don't want to own bonds. You don't want to be the one that loans money to somebody to buy real estate. You want to be the one that borrow the money. Or you don't want to be the lender in an inflationary time period. The lenders lose. The debtors are the ones that win because they repay the debt with cheaper money. The lenders are getting repaid in money that has less value. And I like to own businesses, mining companies that have a lot of gold and silver in the ground. They own these reserves, these deposits, and they have the ability to extract those deposits in the future and sell them when the price is going to be much, much higher than the price is today. And so I want to buy these assets today before the market really prices that in or understands how much higher the price of gold and silver is going to be in the future than it is today.
Last question for you, Peter, before we get you out of here. And I want to hear your reaction to this. Now, this is something that we've been releasing on our channel quite a bit. And it's got quite a bit of a buzz, right? People have been really enjoying this content. And it's this concept called the Great Reset. And I don't know how much you know about it, but pretty much what it is a proposal by the World Economic Forum to pretty much reset the entire global economy and global politics to pretty much have more of the control be under a much bigger globalized government. And as a matter of fact, one of the biggest taglines of this Great Reset concept is you will own nothing, and you will be happy by 2030. That is the proposal. And it's actually not a conspiracy. If you actually go on the World Economic Forum website, the Great Reset is actually the first thing to pop up. So Peter, you're chuckling. I'm curious to hear what's going on in your head.
Well, first of all, I mean, the odds of that happening are very slim. I mean, it seems like the trend in the world is to, have larger governments break apart into smaller governments. I mean, look at what's happening all over Europe. I mean, they tried to, they pulled a bunch of nations together with the EU. But, now, you had the British Brexit, and you have other people talking about exiting the European Union. But you have a lot of countries that used to be one country now that are now 3 or 4 countries. The same thing may eventually happen to the United States. We may break apart. In general, I think when it comes to government, small is good, right? The smaller, the better. And you want government to be more local, right? So it's more responsive to the people that are being governed. The government wants to spend money. All right, well, you got to tax the same people that are getting the benefits, right? You can't make believe that we're going to, put in some program, but we're going to make somebody else pay for it. That's everything should be local. I mean, that's why if you look like in the U.S., I mean, you have city governments, you have county governments, you have state governments, then you have the federal government. Most stuff should be done at the local level. We have it upside down. We have most stuff being done on the federal level, at least most of the spending. Right? That's not how it was supposed to be in America. Like America, we were a federation of independent states. The states were sovereign. It was like each state was a country, and we had a federal government that kind of, unified them. But it was the whole concept of the federal government was more about focusing on war, stuff like that, external foreign policy. It's like all these states got together to outsource a common foreign policy to a federal government. I mean, all the domestic stuff, everything else was supposed to be the province of the states. And the federal government was supposed to be very, very small. But, it got bigger and bigger and bigger. But I think the real trend is going to be to dismantle these massive governments that are so distant from the people that are being governed, to just have smaller governments, more localized. And so, so that's the kind of reset that I want to get behind. Not, just going towards, world socialism under a single dictatorship. But I don't know how any of these individual governments would want to cede their power to some larger government. It's hard, especially for the whole world. But, where we could use a reset is on all the debt. We do need to see debt defaulted on because it's impossible to repay it. Central banks are trying to solve the problem by keeping interest rates at zero so that we can take on even more debt, right? The reason interest rates are at zero is because we have so much debt, nobody could afford to pay the debt if rates went up. But by keeping them at zero, we end up with even more debt. So what we need is less debt. And the way you get less debt is let interest rates go up, and then a lot of the bad debt will default. And that's how we get out from under the debt problem. But then we're able to rebuild legitimate savings because now we have interest rates that are high enough to encourage people to start saving. And that's going to provide, the seed corn for real economic growth because that saving can be invested in capital formation to make labor more productive and increase the supply of goods produced and all this good stuff that flows from savings. We're not getting that right now because you'd have to be an idiot to save your money because you're going to lose. If you save money, the inflation is going to erode away the value. You get no interest. And everybody is incentivized to borrow. And so, that's why, we have no real economic growth. We just have, bubble blowing.